Hello again. Thanks for stopping by. My name is Sherry Marks. I'm the pastor of the Church of the Open Door in Ukiah, California, and I'm happy to have you with me today. This is the second in a new series of topics that I'm doing. I call it Things That Catch My Attention. So I'll explain a little bit as we go along here, but it's less starting with a scripture than starting with something that catches my attention somewhere, and then perhaps I work a scripture into it to show how it's always pertinent to our lives. So I have a file in my computer that is the equivalent of the kitchen junk drawer. You know, that place where you toss oddments that you don't know what else to do with. They don't have a particular spot where they belong, and so they get tossed into this one drawer, which becomes an unholy mess after time if you're not an extremely tidy person, and has to be cleaned out on a regular basis. So things you don't know what to do with but don't want to get rid of. Things you don't want to lose but you have no particular use for right this very minute, but you know you're going to want it sometime in the future. So this file on my computer serves that purpose for things I find while I'm reading. Quotations, interesting articles, poetry, things I plan to come back to at some later point in my life. I do make an effort to show proper citations when I drop things into this file, author, publication, date, that kind of thing, but sometimes things get in there without very much information at all. It's my bad, but unfortunately it happens that way. This is one such today. The piece I'm working with today I have attributed to Daniel Berrigan, but with no context, no when or where he might have said this. I assume it's Berrigan, but can't even be certain it actually is him because Google failed me entirely when I tried to verify that this quote is his. In case you don't know, Daniel Berrigan, along with his younger brother Philip, was a Jesuit priest very prominent in the anti-Vietnam War movement in the 60s. After that war ended, he became very much involved in protesting nuclear proliferation and nuclear sites, and also with the rights of AIDS sufferers. And this is a quote that I've hung on to for many years. I just never really knew what I wanted to do with it before now. This is how it reads. The good is to be done because it is good, not because it is going somewhere. I believe if it is done in that spirit, it will go somewhere, but I don't know where. I have never been seriously interested in the outcome. This, for me, is a wonderful, challenging quote. The good is to be done because it is good, not because it is going somewhere. Just think about that for a second or two here. Good shouldn't be done just for some external reason, but simply because it is good. Not to further a specific end, but just because it's good. Not because it will earn you a slot in heaven, not because it makes you look good in the eyes of others, not so others will think highly of you, not because some rule or law somewhere says it must be done, not even because it makes you feel good when you do it. Good is to be done because it is good. Not even because, in Berrigan's phrase, it's going somewhere, which I take to mean will lead to some particular desired end. Unfortunately, it appears to be extremely difficult for us humans as a whole to separate the concept of abstract good from what benefits me. Scripture is filled with instances of the various writers extolling God's supposed goodness for doing things that are truly horrible, things that benefited the author's people and supported their belief in their own exceptional existence, while totally discounting any others. Read the stories of the Hebrew people moving into and claiming their promised land, the land God told them was theirs. They were delighted that God was blessing them this way, but it didn't look so very good from the viewpoint of the people who had already been living in that land at the time and who were now killed or pushed out. This is, by the way, a war that is still being fought 3,000 years later. So how good is that? Can what is good for only a few truly be good in the sense that we are talking about here? Now, there are hundreds of references for good and goodness to be found in Scripture. There is good news, good fruit, goodwill. It is good to love God, to feed the hungry, good to care for the poor. But all of these instances seem to not quite match up with Berrigan's assertion that good is to be done because it is good. Period. Not because it is going somewhere, not because it has a goal. In the Old Testament, the Hebrew Scriptures, the verse that we read last week from Micah 6:8, to seek justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with God, that verse is repeated over and over throughout all of the prophets, just with slight changes in the language, but basically saying the same thing, such as this one from Isaiah, just as an example. Learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow. This is surely a call for goodness. You can't dispute that. But it, like all the other similar verses found in the Old Testament, is followed in Scripture by a threat. A threat that very bad things will follow if the person does not do this thing, whatever it is. There is a goal to this goodness, and in these cases, the goal is to avoid destruction. Now, other times, the goal is to please God, or because we want to be good people, both good and worthy goals, by the way. Oops. Oops. So, in our day-to-day lives, when we do good things, we are doing them to earn points with God or our neighbors, maybe. Or are we truly doing them simply because they are good and should be done? And are we clear on the difference between the good and what we personally want or need? Is it possible for the good to be pure, to have no bias, no expectation of reward? Probably not, at least as long as we humans are involved in it. But we can come very close. I do think that most of us try to do good in our lives. We do good because it is the right thing to do. Sometimes we do it because there's a goal, sometimes simply because it's the right thing. Is the good that we do always the no strings attached good that Berrigan claimed? No, I don't know. I don't know that it makes a difference. If the good is done, even if somewhat grudgingly sometimes or for mixed reasons, it is still done. And if it goes some direction that we weren't particularly expecting or intending, then it is still good, isn't it? There's a phrase that you hear every now and again. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Don't demand that every instance be perfect rather than doing nothing at all. Or in the words of one of my favorite writers, G.K. Chesterton, anything worth doing is worth doing badly. So just do good. Do it the best you can, and for the best reason you can. And give thanks to God that goodness is, and that God believes that we are capable of doing it. Amen. And thank you for joining me today. I look forward to having you with me next week.